freedom as people. Today is a day to also honor our thoughts and beliefs and actions that no longer serve us, because without them, we wouldn't be who we are today. Don't condemn those parts, embrace them, honor them. Everything that you were, you had to go through in order to be who the person you are today. Just like in Detroit or in Pittsburgh, when they're making cars and they take that steel and they got to melt the steel down and they got to pound it out and they got to bang it out. They had to go through all this work to get out this beautiful car or this beautiful piece of merchandise that they're making, and it took a lot of work to get it to this part. What was once ugly turned into something beautiful, and that happens with us as humans too. Sometimes when we get started in life, it just doesn't go the way we had hoped. We get on a roll, but it's never too late to change who we are. And then what happens is once we do, we want to take that person and put them in a box and say, oh, they never existed. Oh, right. I used to be this person. I'm not that way anymore. And all of a sudden we go into shame mode when really there's nothing to be shameful of. Yes, I was this person, but this is who I am now. And so many people get caught up on that and get lost in their identity as to who they were and where they're going. So some of the things that we let go of to become enlightened beings is what we're going to talk about this morning. And the first thing I know that I had a personal issue with is self-sabotaging behavior.
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Yeah. Self-sabotage is a big one. I had my own issues with that as well. And some of it came from self-image. Mm-hmm. Some of it came from having a very poor self-image. Not feeling like I could shine. Because a lot of times we were taught not to shine.
Exactly.
Well, don't draw attention to yourself because you don't know what attention you're going to get. So we were taught to think small, and in thinking small, we acted small. We didn't act big to our full potential. Mm-hmm. And that's a form of self-sabotage.
Well, I know with myself with self-sabotage, I would work myself into such a negative mindset. And self-sabotage is a little bit different than negative thinking. I would actually get myself to believe that I deserve the behavior. If I was being abused or if someone's yelling at me and screaming at me, I would go through this whole internal dialogue as to why I thought I deserved this.
Right.
How dare I think that I deserve something better? Of course this person's going to do this to me. Why did I get my hopes up? And I would tell myself how stupid I was. How stupid are you to think that you're any better,
right,
or that you're special, or that someone should treat you special? And I tell you, that was like the core of my being. Anything good that was coming my way, for whatever reason, I would throw my own, like a railroad tie in it and just hijack it right off the track. And I don't know why I did that, but that's one thing.
I think that's that whole thinking small and acting small.
We have to get away from the self-sabotaging behavior, first of all. And then next comes into negative thinking. Negative it's our
thinking,
thought patterns.
That's yet again, that feeds right into that whole thing. The negative thinking, that never thinking that either you're deserving, well, you're always thinking the worst of a scenario. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Sometimes that's why we manifest the worst scenario, is because that's all we can put in our mind.
The laws of attraction.
That's all we can imagine. And I like to live by that. If you can imagine it, it can happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm a software engineer. If you can imagine an end user breaking an application, they'll do it. And I've seen it happen. Well, if you can imagine something good happening in your life, it can happen. But if you only imagine bad things in your life, it will happen.
And that's another issue that I had for a long time, was negative thinking. I can get up in the morning and drive down the road, and in 10 minutes I can have one negative scenario after the other, and my day would just snowball. It's like, oh, why am I having such a bad day? And then I would take that bad day and I would just continue with it, because now I'm mad, now I'm angry, now I'm frustrated, and now I don't really give a crap, and it's 8:15 in the morning, and this is how I've set my day. So you have to just stop when you feel that anger coming up, or when you feel that negativity coming up. For every thought that you have, quickly replace it and take it back and put a positive thought. And it takes a lot of practice. It took me a long time to get to where I am now. And because once you get that negative feeling, it grabs a hold of you, and then it becomes you.
Right.
And from the first 5 seconds, if you can negate it, if you feel it, just push it back out. But if you let it seep in, and then it takes for how long for you to recover from that?
It does. It takes root like a bad weed. Mm-hmm. And it will just totally repopulate and repopulate. Negativity draws negativity.
Exactly. And the next thing that some things we'd want to get rid of too is abusive relationships. And abusive relationships are just not physically abusive. And I know it is not easy to leave these. You can be in an abusive relationship with just verbal, psychological, all kinds of things going on, any type of controlling behavior. In order to become more healthy and more productive, you want to be in a relationship that's loving, kind, and nurturing.
Sure do.
You know, even though, Leaf and I, we have a wonderful relationship, and sometimes we cross words, but we're very supportive of each other. When I got the idea to have this radio show, he's like, sure. When we had the idea to do the feral cat thing, he's like, sure.
Oh yeah. It was a crazy household there.
You want to everything. You want to be supportive of each other. And abusive.
Yeah.
Well, your own experience with abusive relationships.
Well, we've had experiences, but in a higher level, abusive relationships, we want to get rid of the abuse, but we don't want to get rid of the knowledge that we gained from them.
Yes.
Now there's knowledge and wisdom to be gained from an abusive relationship, to be passed on to our children, to be passed on to people in our community, either to help them get out of one, help them avoid one, or maybe help people recover from one.
Sure.
But abuse comes in many forms and in many ways, and ultimately it comes down to disrespect and not putting a value on you to allow it to happen. You need to really put value, and there's certain things that we've had a few discussions over this weekend about a few things, and my answer was, here's how you handle it. You say no.
Right.
It's that simple.
Right.
And when someone
set boundaries,
you have to set that boundary. I know that is one of the smallest but one of the most powerful words when used properly. Not overused, but used properly. You can stop and say, no, I'm in control. This is what I say goes. And this is what happens when it doesn't go.
There's consequences.
There is. That's how it should be.
Exactly. And moving through abusive relationships, finding the help that you need. We work with individuals that are experiencing that. We also work with individuals who are in anger management and are already in therapy or some type of work in the abuse and relationship. We do work as a support mechanism, coaches for you if you are both working on your relationship to maintain it through anger management and through other sources. We certainly are a stepping stone support system for you in those areas as well. Next thing we'd like to talk a little bit about is addiction. And I know we talk about that a lot on our show, but that is really one of the core things. And truly, to have a happy, prosperous life, addiction, no matter what it is something that is very difficult to have and still have happiness. I know myself, you've heard me talk about many times, it took so long for me to understand how to live life in a sober way. And to be sober is just like, I just couldn't handle life without being in an altered state of consciousness. And then
I had a little
epiphany
yesterday about addiction and about certain things. I finished up a hypno class, learning hypnotherapy and learning about the mind, how it works. And without getting into too many details, we have two sides of our brain. We have a left side, which is very much analytical. It's business. It's every duck in a row. It's learning by numbers. It's all those things that business, that leadership in a very strong way embody. Now, then you have a right side to your brain. Now, the right side is the artist. It's the thinking outside the box. It's things flow. It's things that are mostly subconscious. So on that left side, you kind of have that 10% of your brain that you use while you're awake. Yeah. And then everything else is on the other side. Now, with addiction, one of the things we did learn in class is people who are prone towards addiction are very much left brain people. They're very analytical. They are very, very so much into thought, into structure, into that sort of thing, that they're unbalanced. And my little epiphany and my little thought in all of this is that's where the addiction comes in. It's to quiet that down so they can get in touch with the right brain, the creativity, everything else so they can be balanced out, so they can have that creative mind, so they can link to the subconscious, so they can make this happen.
Absolutely. And plus being ADHD as it was, I've always got something flipping through my mind. And, when I would be out there partying or whatever, and I don't even know how I even turned into this super analytical person. Those of you that know me in Michigan, you guys are sitting here thinking, this ain't the same chick we knew, because I used to be crazy. And I'd be out having a good time, and I never had a care in the world, and life was just one big party. And then all of a sudden something changed, and I became this severely structured, driven, laser beam focused person that through being intoxicated, I was able to finally bring that down and enjoy my life. And I didn't really realize that until you said that yesterday.
Well, and think about it. People who are usually dealing with addiction are people who are self-medicating.
Yes.
And I don't mean self-medicating as most people know what I mean by when I say self-medicating. They're using a substance to try to bring themselves to a particular place, a particular, as some would say, altered consciousness.
Altered state of consciousness.
But you know what? I don't believe it's as much an altered state of consciousness as more a balance. Because that's one of the things you do find with people in addiction, usually when they get sober, is a lot of times there's an underlying effect.
Exactly. We talked about that dual diagnosis. I know with me it's ADHD, and I know several other people who have bipolar, ADHD. There's some schizophrenia in some people.
Sure.
And it's that monkey mind, we call it, that goes on and on and on, and it stops us from enjoying life. And then when I'm out there drinking and all that does come down, all that agility and all that rigidity that I have would stop, and I'd finally be able to breathe. And that's when I would get super creative. I could write, I would do this. I designed that whole other business I had when I met you.
Exactly.
And things were going on. And then when I got sober, it's been so hard to move forward, because it's like, I have to start thinking in a different mindset.
Because you have almost like an accountant mind.
Yes.
1 + 1 has to equal 2.
Exactly.
Where, okay, as most people who know me know, I'm very right-brained. Almost too much at times, although I can slip into the left brain when I'm at work. When I have to be an engineer, I can turn it on. But some days it's work to turn that on, where, hey, that right brain, it's out there, and I'm sitting there playing around with this and doodling with that, and imagining, well, what if we did this and this and this outside the realm of normal?
Sure.
What would the results be? Those sort of things fascinate me. But that was just a little epiphany.
I think that was
yesterday.
pretty fascinating, and our hypnosis teacher, I'm sure she would enjoy that if she had a chance to hear that. Thank you. Another core issue to have help get out of your system too and leave also is low self-esteem. And I'm not going to get too much into low self-esteem, because all these things lead to ultimately low self-esteem, and then low self-esteem feeds these things again. We begin to feel bad about ourselves. We go round and round and create this circle.
Sure.
And last on our list, and this is just a sample list of some behaviors that people have had to let go and change in their thought processes in order to grow. And the last one I'd like to talk about is our religious and spiritual beliefs. There are so many people I know that are stuck in a set because of what they were taught as children in religion, or what they were taught about, as children about spiritual beliefs.
Right.
And they're into this sector, and they can't move forward in their life because they are so focused on what they've been told through religious indoctrinating that they don't even think they can think outside that box. And it's amazing once people, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with their religion, I'm just saying that sometimes we get so focused, or things are hammered into us. So I didn't have this experience. This wasn't one of my personal experiences. I changed through gaining spiritual belief.
Right.
But I know you and others like you went through
did I have an issue with this. Yeah, I was one who was indoctrinated into the Catholic religion at a young age. I was born into it. And to give you an idea, my mother, a wonderful lady, but if the Catholic religion was a biker group, she would have been a 1%er when it came down to religion, when it came down to that. But you know what? It was a good set of morals. It was a good set of standards to grow up by.
Absolutely.
But it was limited. It didn't allow me to think outside the box and to deal with those gray areas of life that we deal with. Now, you may have some people out there going, well, there aren't gray areas because there's just this. Unfortunately, no.
Exactly.
Not in my life, and not in me trying to lead to my full potential.